You all set?
I'm ready.
Good.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio with us today here in Nashville, Tennessee, I have followed your career a lot longer than I think you might realize.
Oh, wow. And now I'm feeling a lot of pressure.
It's okay. R.J. Curtis is in the studio with us today. He has continued to make a name for himself here in the music business. He recently received the honor of being selected as an off-air honoree. I got that right? Mm-hmm. Off-air honoree for the class of 2021 Country Radio Hall of Fame inductees. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
For taking on his current position with Country Radio Broadcasters and Country Radio Seminar, RJ served in roles including being on the CRS Board of Directors for 20 years, CRS Executive Committee member, and CRS Board President from 2004 to 2007. Before joining CRS, he found success working on radio programming and management side in several markets, including Los Angeles, Phoenix, and San Antonio. He later switched gears to focus on journalism, eventually being named the editor of All Access Media Group. RJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. Yeah, when I say I've been following your career, we actually met, maybe I should say incidentally, probably about 15, 20 years ago at a CRS convention.
Of course, CRS.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the suite parties. And I want to say that you're a true gentleman because you took the time to stop and talk and meet some people, especially some of the independent artists who are just trying to get a leg up into the business. And you really took the time to spend with them. And that impresses me a lot because it's so easy these days to just kind of brush people aside and just move on.
Well, I think that's what CRS is all about. It's a big networking opportunity for everybody. And probably, if you're saying 15 or so years ago, I was still in radio at the time. And as a programmer, I think you have to be open to any act that's showcasing at CRS because you never know.
You never know.
You just never know. Like somebody could pop wide open. And I think I learned this a long time ago when I was at KNIX in Phoenix. I really learned how to host artists coming by the radio station and treat them with the respect that they deserve and just keep that open mind. You just never know. Somebody could walk in the door who you've never heard of before, and a year later, they could be a household name.
And you brought up an interesting aspect is in that as a radio programmer, whether you're the consultant or the program director or the music director, you folks are getting inundated on a daily basis, not only from the independent artists, but especially the record labels, the major record labels. Hey, we have someone coming through town today. Can you spend some time with them? And I know if you did just that, you'd never get the rest of your work done. So it's appreciated when you take the time out, but you're right. That one artist that's coming in, you don't know if they're going to be the next Little Big Town or the next Taylor Swift or it's a flash in the pan. So it's a risk for you guys too.
Well, I think programmers owe it to themselves to consider everything. I mean, I'll go back to CRS in 1989, all right? I'm walking around there, and this is when I was with KNIX. And when we went to CRS, when I worked at KNIX, we traveled as an entourage. I mean, Michael Owens, our general manager, took 7 or 8 of us to CRS, which is pretty crazy when you think about now. That's rare. Usually it's in pairs or maybe 3 people from an organization at most. But Michael liked to travel with a large crowd little posse, and we traveled together. We didn't go anywhere unless we were as a group. But we're walking around CRS in 1989, and there's this guy, a new artist on Capitol Records, promoting himself. No one knew who he was. He's passing out these buttons, these round orange buttons, and they say, "Much too young to feel this damned old" on them. And he's completely unknown, and his name was Garth Brooks. And, a lot of people, when Garth approached them, he was with a single record rep from Capitol and him. He didn't have an entourage with him. A lot of people he's passing out these buttons and a CD sampler in a little folder. And a lot of radio guys just took the button and just tossed it and just took the stuff and just like, yeah, who are you? Because Garth, and I'm not being disingenuous to Garth because he would laugh at this. I think he used this as an example. I think he described himself in his early days as a thumb wearing a hat. Garth was not the pretty boy. He's a good-looking guy, don't get me wrong. But I think people just dismissed that. We did not. We were talking with Garth, getting to know him. And Garth has an amazing memory, as we all know. And he remembers the people who stopped and talked to him.
And he remembers your name after meeting you one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a very rare attribute.
Yeah, no, he's a special artist. And I think, back to the original point of just considering everything, I think, especially at CRS, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of artists there. That's a tremendous opportunity for programmers to really pay attention to see what's going on and to see what might be happening in the next year for our format.
That leads me to the question of, CRS, it's going to be a return to person event now. Was it virtual last year?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. It was virtual this year. It feels like last year because that was February.
It all runs together.
I'll tell you what's happened since March 11th, when the World Health Organization declared a worldwide pandemic, to now, it seems like maybe that was 5 years ago because 2020 took forever and 2021 is just racing by.
Right.
But we did do a virtual event in February of this year. And there's nothing that can replace the experience of CRS as a live, in-person experience. But I think we did the best that we possibly could. We're very proud of the effort that we put forth. We had the advantage leading up to the February event of watching a lot of other virtual events and paying attention and taking notes and saying, what did we think worked and what maybe didn't work? The thing I think that was surprising to us and very gratifying was the collegial reunion kind of camaraderie secret sauce of CRS was there, even though we're all looking at our laptop. And we had this chat going on. And I thought at first, well, I don't know, is that going to work? Are people going to, that thing was unbelievable. Thing was blowing up all week.
That's good to hear.
And the other thing I think that helped us a lot was we were able to salvage the live music performances that people expect from CRS. Obviously not in the same setting as a concert setting. You're attending it in person, but we brought live music. We did luncheons, we did New Faces, we did Acoustic Alley, all the usual things in a different context, of course. But I think that people related to that. And I think the educational curriculum was really, really outstanding. We added a fourth day to CRS. So it was 4 full days of agenda items that we could ordinarily not fit onto the grid for CRS, which is, 2.5 day event. So listen, we're really proud of it. But again, you have to take a step back and say there's nothing that compares to the live event. I think the people I've talked to are really excited about that coming back at the Omni this year.
When I first started going to Country Radio Seminar, which was about 1993, 94. It was at the Opryland Hotel.
Yes, I remember that well.
And of course, all the big things was which suite party would you get invited to? Or would you make it on the General Jackson cruise?
Right, yes, you've nailed it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what it was all about. But it's evolved into, it has really become not just a showcase, but a learning process. And it's as you said, it becomes educational because, I don't want to touch on this a little bit later on, but the emerging trends in radio, and country radio is very inclusive in that. It's changed so much because now you guys are, I don't want to say battling, but you're up against Spotify, you're up against Pandora, you're up against all of these streaming services that to a certain extent, I would think, conflicts a little bit with terrestrial radio.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think it's a really challenging time for radio with the emergence in the last 10 years of all these streaming platforms and a wider digital space. And the dashboard on your car or on your phone, that's really the destination for people to consume music and all media content. So yeah, radio's got to figure that out. That's the part we play at CRS, is helping radio figure it out, but also becoming an event that is appealing to Spotify and Pandora and other digital platforms to come and talk it over. The spirit of CRS over the years has always been one of sharing. In fact, the motto of CRS for many years is and has been growth through sharing. And back in the day, when CRS was put together by Charlie Monk and all his colleagues back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was about pulling radio and labels together who clearly had different agendas and different, revenue goals and all that sort of thing. Pull them together and get a conversation going about how everybody can be better and how everybody can win. That spirit still exists. It's challenging because the digital space, the DSPs, they're very proprietary with information. And that's one of the reasons that we've expanded CRS and introduced at the virtual space last year, but it's coming back in the live space on Wednesday all day, is the Streaming Summit. That's designed to make CRS important, meaningful, and a true destination for the digital space to come and talk about these things and compare notes. It is harder to get them to do that because they keep everything very close to the vest. But I think it's good for radio to attend those sessions too, to understand better what's happening on these DSPs and what kind of programming and what kind of curation of music that they're developing. Because I think radio can learn a lot from that. And I think the DSPs can learn a lot from what radio is doing too.
This very close to the vest protective mindset that the DSPs have, is that something that you feel they're going to eventually open up to, or are they just going to keep that as that's their collateral and they're not letting go of it? And
I hope that they do open up and share more with themselves and with all attendees. I think that in the tech world, that is sort of the culture, is to keep everything proprietary and close to the vest and closed to the rest of the world.
Right.
I get it. That's the culture. But I think that what you'll see at CRS in February is, and again, it's only the second year for the Streaming Summit, and it's only the first year that we've done it live. So I'm very encouraged by the participation of Spotify in particular. They're coming to the table and really sharing a lot of information. And I think that, every business, no matter whether it's media, entertainment, whatever, it's competitive. And once your competitor starts playing the game, I think that everyone will loosen up a little bit. Because the goal of it, CRS and this sharing atmosphere, it's all about making everybody a winner. And I don't know that, I don't know enough about it. So I may be speaking totally out of school. I don't know that there's any real secrets out there.
right.
Does Spotify have some, secret formula that Apple can't figure out and crack the code on? I don't know, but I feel like in radio there haven't been any secrets for a really long time.
Right. Yeah.
It was just a matter of radio getting together at CRS, sharing secrets and sharing ideas and innovations that everyone could benefit from, so that everyone becomes more successful and the genre grows. That's really what we're here for at CRS, is to make the country music genre bigger and better and more appealing to as many people as possible.
In the studio with us here in Nashville, Tennessee, R.J. Curtis.
Hi, this is Byron Nemeth. Check out my new episode on the business side of music with Bob Bender.
You're listening to the business side of music.
When you have a Korg synth at your fingertips, the possibilities are endless. Be it digital, analog modeling, altered FM, wave sequencing, or the multi-engine synth, Korg gives you easy access to a variety of features to help you get the perfect sounds quickly. Whether you're a professional musician or just starting out, Korg truly has a synthesizer to help you express yourself. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products to create new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the business side of music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena. And believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee with R.J. Curtis. When we talk about terrestrial radio and we talk about the streaming platforms, there's another one out there that I'm wondering if there's any room for or if they're even recognized, and that's internet radio, which are kind of these, little independent. We used to call them pirate stations back in the 70s and 80s. They don't really fly. They fly under the radar. They kind of do their own thing. They have their own format and their own playlist, and, they program different than anybody else. Is that something that you guys recognize at this point, or is that still pretty much off the radar?
It hasn't been on the radar in terms of the agenda, but I'm not saying it's not. It's something that we would just dismiss. Again, I think what we're all about is anybody who is bringing music to the consumer, who wants to find out more about music or discover artists or whatever. I think that's fair game for us.
Yeah.
We haven't done a lot with that. Not to say that we wouldn't be open to it, to find more about it and introduce it to the rest of our attendees.
How I look at it is a listener is a listener. And if they're listening to the little mom and pop community radio station, or they're listening to K Earth 101, KLOS, KFI Los Angeles, or, when I was a kid, KMPC, those obviously set the benchmark for a lot of other, they kind of set the standard for everybody else. And with that being said, I'm going to kind of go in a little different direction. And that is when we talk about the emerging trends in radio and country radio. And I just read an article, I think it was last week, talking about New York City as a market. Is it a viable country radio market anymore? Because I think didn't their last country radio station flip and go into a different format?
Yeah, Odyssey just flipped Nash, WNSH. They just flipped it within the last 10 days from country, and they launched it, I think, 2013 or 14. And they flipped to an old school or sort of oldies-based hip-hop format.
Yeah. How does country radio broadcasters, how do you address something like that? Do you start looking for an alternative, or do you kind of let it suss itself out? New York City is a big market. I would assume out of the millions upon millions, there's a hefty dose of country music fans there.
No doubt about that. I think the market, if you look at the New York market in the last 20 years, it's been a little bit up and down and inconsistent in terms of consumption of terrestrial radio in that market. In about 2001 or 2, and I could be off by a year or two, WYNY also flipped out of the format. And I think it was I was asked this question by Melinda Newman at Billboard. And I told her, I said, I think it's very telling that for, 10 or 11 years, nobody jumped right back in and said, oh, there's a sense of urgency to program a country station in New York City. Cumulus, who at the time owned WNSH, they flipped it. And think about the time that they flipped the format. It was 2013 or 14. Again, I might be off by a year or so there. But whenever, it was somewhere in that range. And that's when the format, if you look back over the last 10 years and the overall performance of country radio as a genre, as a format, has never been higher. It was post 2012, Florida Georgia Line had blown up. The bro country thing was going. I'm not going to get into the bro country thing. Some people just, hate it. You can say what you want about
That's a safe path to take right about now.
You can say what you want about bro country and that, that micro trend that happened. But I will say this, you can't deny that it helped the format grow and it became more appealing to people who ordinarily wouldn't sample country music and listen to it on a regular basis. So at the peak of country radio's overall performance, Cumulus flips into the format with Nash. And I think those shares have been gradually, decreasing or flat. I know the main thing, all you have to do is look at, and Country Air Check posted this, all you have to do is really look at the revenue of that radio station, and it just wasn't there. And when you're Odyssey, that's a big radio company.
Right.
And I know they have other stations there, but every station has to contribute to that revenue pool. Years ago, radio people will understand this, have been in major markets because they've all heard this. Years ago when I worked in Los Angeles, my general manager was, we were always under pressure to meet revenue and ratings goals, okay? Like everyone is. Not saying Market 201 isn't, but in a market like Los Angeles.
When the books come out, you want to see where you sit.
Right. And my general manager used to say, if Los Angeles sneezes, the company catches a cold. And every station in a market like New York for a company like Odyssey has to perform. It just didn't seem like the revenue was there. And Melinda also, when we were talking, from Billboard, she was asking, do you think somebody jumps right back in? And I said, I'm skeptical of that.
Right.
I think that's going to be, and it hasn't happened. Now, I'm not saying that would happen in a couple of weeks, but I do remember when my last radio gig was in Los Angeles at KZLA, and Emmis flipped the station in August of 2006, and it took until, in fact, it was during CRS, March of 2007, for Saul Levine to flip Go Country from classical to country, March of 2007. And he thought about it for a long time. That's relatively fast, actually. I'd be skeptical to see someone jump right back into that because of the inconsistency, the performance of country radio in that market. It's a tough market. There's a lot of radio in that market.
Right.
The central part of that market, the metro, is very diverse. New York City is obviously one of the most international cities in the world. It's a niche format in a big market, and that is very tough to turn revenue in.
But from a live performance standpoint, country artists still do quite well in that market.
Yes. I think it's still going to be a touring destination because there's a huge population center there. And as I just said, very diverse. And to your point a minute ago, there are country fans there.
Yeah.
There are country fans there. And in the last 10 years since that station launched, the streaming platforms have blown up. They've gotten a lot more traction. There's a lot of choices for for country music listeners to consume their favorite music, more so than there were 10 years ago.
Sirius XM, which we have in our car, satellite radio. There's, I think, 4 or 5 different country stations on there. Is that part of the CRS or the CRB picture in incorporating them into that fold?
We've always welcomed Sirius XM to participate. For a couple of years, J.R. Schumann, who heads up all the programming for country, was on our agenda committee, and he was very innovative and dynamic. And I wish that he was still participating. He's just very busy. I think he's on the CMA board, and he's got a lot of other stuff going on. But no, we've always welcomed participation from Sirius XM at CRS.
Do you see traditional country? You mentioned bro country. I'm a traditionalist. When you talk about, I listen to Merle Haggard, I listen to Porter Wagner, I listen to that style of music. Is there a market for that type of music? Because it has become the kind of the Y2K and beyond when it comes to country music now. Is there still room for that older format? Does that hat still fit anybody when it comes to listeners?
Listen, you and I are on the same boat on that. I mean, when I first got into the format, it was 1980, okay? So some of that stuff, that was from the 60s was only 20 years old.
Right.
Okay, think about in 1980, 20 years ago was 1960, okay? Now think about right now. 20 years ago, it's 2001.
Yeah.
All right? Now, it's just crazy to think about that. So a lot of that music I really, really love. I just feel like the kind of stuff that you're talking about, the super, back to Sirius XM, one of my favorite channels is Willie's Roadhouse, a very traditional channel. I love that station. I think that that kind of music, that kind of country music is very, very niche right now because the nostalgia format, if you splinter it off and think about what Sirius XM is doing and what some terrestrial radio stations are doing with older music, the nostalgia category is really stuff from the mid 90s now. That's that's what's considered oldies. A lot of younger generation country listeners look at that and are discovering it for the first time. And that kind of gold category on a radio station is very, very strong. I think there'll always be a place for that kind of traditional music that you and I like. Merle Haggard got me to love this music. Okay. When I first got into country radio, I had no idea. I'd never listened to country music. I'd never listened to a country song from start to finish until the first night on the air at KZLA, my first air shift at a country station. Okay. So I was completely, unaware and uninterested, quite frankly. But Merle Haggard and George Strait, just hooked me big time, and I was in. But I think that kind of music is going to be really, really niche, and I think the gold category, that nostalgia stuff, is going to be, going to continue to move closer to where we are right now. The mid '90s is sort of the sweet spot of it right now.
Yeah. The George Straits and the Garth Brooks of the world, Reba, that era. It's
Brooks and Dunn, Clint Black, Travis Tritt, Shania Twain. We can go on and on with all those great 90s artists. Some amazing music. And when you think about the 90s, starting with the class of '89 with Clint Black and Garth Brooks, that was a very sustainable group of artists from, '89 till about '96 when it kind of petered out.
Yeah.
That's a 7-year, that's a long period of time for them to, have that kind of sustained success.
And you brought up something when you talk about that was kind of almost the golden era of, to me, I remember Music Row was so alive and so on fire. You would, Brooks and Dunn would get ready to kick off their tour, and they had all their tour buses and their semis circle around Music Row, honking their horns. And, I think Tim McGraw did the same thing, and Leanne Rimes. And I don't think you see that as much as you used to. Is country music today, and we have listeners all over the world, so it's not just country music, but that's what we're talking about today, is country music becoming more sustainable by being kind of that young hip hop crowd now, going beyond the bro country?
Well, I think country is always, for almost as long as I've been in the format, it's always been trying to young itself up and be appealing to younger listeners, because it's sort of like, and this is a terrible example, I'm going to use it, I hope people don't kill me for this, but it's sort of like, cigarettes and soft drinks. If you can get people turned on to this music at a young age, it becomes a habit and something that they love and they want to use.
I agree. Absolutely.
That's been going on for a long time. But it's interesting because when you go to live concert events for country shows, whether it's a singular, headliner act, Eric Church or, Luke Combs or something like that, and certainly at a festival event, you look around the crowd and it's a cross section. It's everybody. It is truly that 18 to 54-year-old demo for this format. It's really remarkable. You don't see that in any other format.
In fact, you brought up something, the loyalty, the fan base of country artists is so devout. You keep them for life. It's not this kind of, the wind is going in this direction, you stay with that artist. I mean, once you latch onto them, that's what country music, I think, has over any other genre, is that your fan base stays with you.
That's so true, and that's been going on for 50 or 60 years, right? I mean, that's one of the hallmarks. One of the special things about this format is that the loyalty that listeners feel towards their artists, they'll follow them, through their lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's really,
I think
great.
That's where you see the age demographics that you talked about, because the old, to a certain extent, bring the young with them, and then you've made new fans with that younger generation.
Well, it used to be, and I think it's still happening to some degree, that the parents turn their children on to this music. And now, I think with the digital age and some of these streaming platforms, all these playlists, the younger kids can bring their parents into that space and that method of consumption.
Yeah.
I think that's happening.
In the studio with us here in Nashville, Tennessee, R.J. Curtis.
Hey, this is Paul Worley, and I've been lucky to work with a lot of great artists in my life, the Dixie Chicks, Martina McBride, and many, many more. You're listening to The Business Side of Music. Give it a listen.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hey there, my name is Dr. Garrett Hope. I am a composer, coach, podcaster, and speaker. I've been focused on building my music business since 2014 and helping others build theirs since 2015. I want to tell you about the second annual Ultimate Music Business Summit we are organizing. It'll take place early January of 2022. There will be dozens of presentations with highly actionable content, all of it available to you so you can start your business, grow your business, and ultimately make more money. Because here's the deal. Unless you earn all of your income from an employer, you are a self-employed small business owner. And if you want to do more than survive, if you want to grow your audience, or if you want to impact more people, you have to think and act like a business owner. And that means this summit is for you. This summit will give you real-world, not theoretical, strategies you can implement immediately. You don't need to be stuck with fear or living in your failures. I promise you, with all the teachers lined up, you will get something you've never thought of before. Even though building a business is hard, no one is promising it's easy. It is possible. You just need the right tools and strategies. Tickets for this virtual event will go on sale soon. To be the first in line and to get more information about the summit, presenters, and more, go to musicsummit.biz. That's musicsummit.biz and add your email to the list.
While Santa is packing a sleigh, Mrs. Claus is busy ordering from the Business Side of Music gift shop. Go to our website at businesssideofmusic.com and click on the shop button at the top of the page.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio here, Nashville, Tennessee, R.J. Curtis is sitting across the podcast table. There has been an announcement recently involving the Lisa McKay Women in Radio Scholarship Program. Let's talk about that.
We're really proud of that. I must say that the CRB Board of Directors was presented with an idea to honor young, aspiring women in radio, and they were all about it, unanimous, like, yes, slam dunk. And this was spearheaded by Lee Adams, who's one of the heads of promotion for Broken Bow. And Lee and Lisa were very close. Lisa was close with, you could find thousands of people who were close to Lisa McKay. Yeah. She was a very universally loved.
She was another one of those people that took the time to reach out and say hello. And
yes.
Nobody was a stranger around her.
She unfortunately passed away several years ago. It was just tragic because she announced, I want to say it was 2017. She announced that she was sick, and then within 2 weeks she passed away. So It was very, very horrible. Yes, a wonderful woman. Everyone loved her, and a great mentor to younger female broadcasters and aspiring female broadcasters in our business. And so Lee came up with the idea, hey, we want to honor that and come up with a scholarship program in Lisa's name. It's patterned after the Rusty Walker Scholarship Program that we established in 2013 after Rusty passed away, another radio professional who mentored so many younger broadcasters. If you look at the Lisa and the Rusty coaching tree, if you will, as they call it in college football, you'll see so many people pass through either stations or the mentorship of Lisa McKay and Rusty Walker. But we've established that for the first time, and we will award 3 young women a scholarship, a complete registration, airfare, hotel for the entirety of CRS 2022. We're very, very excited about that. And the response was incredible. I mean, it's a first-year event, but we're very, very proud to do it. We're proud to align ourselves with Lee and the BMG group in getting that, spearheading that, and we're excited to see who our representatives will be. We got a tremendous amount of applications. I'm very excited about that.
Let's talk about Country Radio Seminar, because it is coming, February of next year?
February 23rd through 25th. Yeah.
And it's in real time. It's real live. It's not virtual. How do people find out about it? How do they sign up? Let's kind of run through that rodeo real quick, if you don't mind.
Well, we went on sale with registration in the middle of August, And we message that with our press release, our e-blast, and all of the past attendees give us their email addresses, and we send them a lot of messages about CRS and initiatives. The Lisa McKay, that's where we first messaged that program, and since then we've just been still on it. But we went on sale with registration in the middle of August. That went very well. I think that after a pandemic and the virtual event that we talked about a minute ago, and I'll tell you, about a month ago, almost a month ago now, the Country Radio Hall of Fame, I will say that was an unbelievable gathering for a lot of reasons. But the one thing that I noticed in the cocktail party beforehand was so many people who hadn't seen each other for like 2 years. And the energy in that room was just incredible. I think people are really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I think they want to get back out. They want to, as we used to call it, not so much a grip and grin or a meet and greet, but it's you want to really be rubbing elbows with the peers in your industry. And virtual is okay, I get it, and there's still some conferences we're involved in that are totally virtual going into 2022. But this is a place where you can shake hands and chat with someone and hand out business cards. It's an educational experience and it's an entertainment experience, but it's also a way to do some networking, right?
100%. I mean, you've just framed it beautifully there. There are really three aspects to CRS, and that is the educational, which is the foundational part of it, the curriculum, that educating, sharing, communicating with each other so the genre grows. The entertainment, that's always been a big part of CRS, but I'd say in the last 10 years, it's really, really grown with the luncheons and Acoustic Alley and all that. But again, I always refer to it, and I already have, I know, I don't mean to be repetitive, but it's as the secret sauce, that networking. And it's not just the grip and grin, to your point. It is the ability to walk across the room and see Mike McVeigh or Mike Dungan or John Esposito or Rod Phillips or, you name the Mount Rushmore label and radio guys right now, to go up to them and introduce yourself. You might be just starting out. I remember my very first CRS in 1985, Gordon Mclennan was one of the keynotes. Say, who's Gordon Mclennan? Well, Gordon Mclennan was one of the most innovative broadcasters in the history of radio, very involved in the development of top 40 radio back in the 60s. And he was a speaker at CRS. I knew who Gordon Mclennan was. And this is a weird story, but I saw him speaking. And then about 10 minutes later, I ran into him in the men's room, of all places. And, I waited till he was out of the men's room and introduced myself. Couldn't have been nicer. And there's so many experiences like that in my time at CRS, where I've met people when I was first starting out in this format, but I've seen it happen. And I think that's one of the things that inspired me, when I got into a more prominent role, more of a leadership role. I think it's important for people to make themselves accessible to anybody who comes up to them. And that's really what CRS is all about. But that networking, and it's not, like you said, not the grip and grin. It's the ability to go up to these people and have, a 5-minute conversation and give them your business card and exchange contact information. That's really the beauty of it.
How do people sign up?
CountryRadioSeminar.com.
As easy as that.
Yeah, go there. The first page that loads up will have a register here, and you can sign up. And I would urge people to sign up before CRS comes, because the rate's going to jump.
Right.
And that's only because it's hard to administer a rate that's right now our registration rate is $649. I know that's we don't assume that's cheap for anybody, but I will say that the registration fee it doesn't equal what it costs to have each attendee come to CRS.
Right.
It's a loss leader event. We're a nonprofit organization. We're a service organization for our industry, and we're happy to do that.
And you get attendees from all over the world, right?
We do. We had somebody attend not only the virtual, but the year before he came from Singapore and attended. We have a lot of people from Canada come. We have some from the UK. Yeah, it's an international event.
Yeah.
Primarily, it's a United States radio and, now growing category DSP and record label event. But boy, I think that moving forward, CRS will take a broader approach to our programming and curriculum. I think it needs to, and we will never get away from servicing what radio needs to know and learn to grow their audience and make their product better. But I think our event needs to broaden itself and be more inclusive. That's why you see, as I've talked about, the streaming summit. We're going to enter into a couple sessions with the touring industry. There's podcasting, there's podcasting. We need to be entertaining and, open and appealing to that sector. There's just so many content providers that focus on country music and this genre. That's what CRS needs to be about moving forward in the next 5-10 years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.